is buzzing, and I think we are live. Hello, how are you doing? Thank you for joining us. I'm Luke, and this is Sei Hutchinson, absolute legend, good friend of mine, and great writer. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Glad to be here.
Good. So we join you in Bangkok, Thailand, which is
Yes,
midnight for you now.
it is midnight. Yeah.
Wow. I've got so many questions about that as well because Bangkok is one of my favorite cities in Asia. Like I absolutely love it. Wild, noisy,
It's not
busy
wild now.
place.
There's lockdown.
Is it? Are you all locked down there completely?
Well, they have a curfew for a lot of the restaurants. They have to close at 11, and the pubs and the bars are closed right now, still closed, because they had a breakout of COVID maybe about 3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and so they kind of semi-locked things down.
Gosh. It must
Yeah.
be crazy. It must be strange to see it like that because you said before we came on air that you've been there, 7 or 8 years. You've seen
Yeah,
the city
yeah.
and what it's normally like.
Before, when I first got here, it was wild.
Mm. I went
You
in
know, it's
2015, I think, for the first time. Or
it's
no,
changed a
before
lot.
2013, something like that. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. But you've
I,
travelled
I
a
can only
lot through.
imagine what it was like 20 years ago.
No, completely. But you've travelled a lot through Asia as well, haven't you? From
Yes,
seeing the
I mean
titles
I
of your
used
books.
Thailand as a base, and it allowed me to go to Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Indonesia, Hong Kong, Taiwan, China. It
Yeah.
was just a really great place to base myself, and then travel out of it. And that's pretty much what I did for the last 7 or 8 years until the
Wow.
pandemic.
Until you've been forced to have a bit of a break from all the travelling.
Yeah, the
How?
pandemic came along.
No, my books are massively based around travel. That's like a main sort of thing in them. How much do you get that into your novels? Because I think a lot of your characters are based in the US, aren't they? Like they're American characters, quite a lot of them. How do you pull them out? How do you get them out and into different places around the world?
Well, I have one series where the character is an FBI agent, so she's kind of locked into the U.S. because of her job. But I thought about this when I created the series. She originally grew up in Hong Kong and migrated to
Ah,
the U.S.
yes, I
Yeah,
remember
so
this.
she has ties back in Hong Kong. Um, and then I have another series that revolves around an assassin, and so she can pretty much go wherever she wants. So that's how I get out of the U.S. and then I can tap into all the places that I've traveled to, and work them into my books.
It must be. It must be. It's such an exciting place to sort of bring stories to a different place, isn't it? It's such an exciting thing. What do you look for when you set a book? What sort of thing makes it a great setting? Do you think?
You mean the setting?
Yeah. What makes a great setting? Do you think?
Um, I don't know if I think about it that way. I just kind of I just focus on places that I've traveled to,
Mm.
and and if there's a place where I'm like, wow, I've never written a book that's taking place there. How can I get the story to evolve there? Which usually it's not that hard.
Yeah.
The story to me is pretty generic. It doesn't really they can take place anywhere.
Right.
So I
Uh,
just kind of focus on places where I've traveled. You know.
and then you sort of so the story exists initially sort of separate to the place, and then you sort of join them together in the writing process. Do you think?
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, interesting.
I would say so. Like I'm getting ready to write a new book for my FBI series, and part of the story I already know is going to take place in Morocco.
Mm.
Now I've never been to Morocco. I've always wanted to go to Morocco.
You need to. Whenever you can,
So
anyway. Whenever it's safe.
yeah, but and there was a time when I was actually planning a trip to Morocco, so I was doing a lot of research, And so that's what made me want to have part of the story take place there. You know,
Yeah.
I was like, I had done all this research and I found all these cool places to visit, and you know, oh, I want to go here, I want to go here. I'm just like, this is my way, you know, to kind of live through my character as they go there, you know. But normally it doesn't work that way. Normally I much rather pull from my experiences, you know.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you completely, and I love how writing a book set in a place sort of extends the feeling of being there. You know, so you might go somewhere for 2 weeks, but then you spend the following 2 months writing a book set in that place. It feels like you've been there that entire time, doesn't it? You know, it's got that strange sort of feeling. I'm just going to jump over to the comments time. We'll see who's watching this.
Okay.
If you're listening in either on Facebook or YouTube, do drop a comment. If you want to, drop a comment in to say hello. You can watch anonymously should you want to do that too. That's fine. But it's always nice to have sort of a bit of a conversation with you. Steve Moore. Hello, mate. How are you? He says, all right, lads. Good to see you, Ty. That should appear on your screen as well, Ty, if you can see the comments.
How do I see it?
I don't. It should appear on your screen. If not, don't worry about it. I don't want you to press anything and disappear. Adetta says,
okay.
wavy hand. Hi, Adetta. How are you doing? Alison says, hi. Alison says, hi, Luke and Ty. Alison, how are you doing? Good to see you. Amy says, hello. And Steve is talking about his own writing process. That's my tactic too. Write where you know, not only what you know. Yes, absolutely right. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
So you've been writing books
in Seattle now, so
yes, he is.
Seattle.
Yes, he is in Seattle now. Yeah. So you've been writing books for a long time now. I looked on your website earlier, and you must have 30 something books out.
Yeah, close to 30
That's
books.
mad.
I published my first book in 2011. That book took me the longest. It took me almost 2 years to write because I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah, of course. That's the way it goes, isn't it, when you first do it?
Yeah, I just had an idea.
Which was your first one then? Was that one of the Aby Kane ones?
No, the first one revolved around this character called Darby Stansfield. And the original title of the book was Chop Suey. I've changed it now. It's now called The Accidental Criminal. But I used to work in advertising. And I had this idea for an ad campaign that just, I guess it was too much for the people in charge to want to present it to the client. You know, the client was I don't know if I should say the client's name, but it was a telecom company, you know, one of those big AT&T companies. And the idea was, you know, what if they sold their B&B products? You know, they sell it to these huge companies, like organizations like IBM, Apple, Microsoft, you know. And I thought, well, if these products can make these companies or these organizations more efficient, more productive, well, maybe they can make organizations like the Mafia, the Triads, you know, more productive. You know, so that was the idea. I wanted to do this ad campaign where they had like this. They were on the dark web and they were selling all their products to all these other organizations because that's how good their product was, you know. So that's where the idea was, and I would just tell people about it, and everyone would laugh. They go, "Oh, that's a funny idea. It's a funny idea. You should do something with it." So I turned it into a book, and it revolves around this sales guy who works for a telecom company, who goes out and starts recruiting these criminal organizations and convinces them to buy his product, that it would make their organizations more productive, you know.
I love the idea of that.
So
that sounds great.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the idea I thought was pretty funny. The writing in the book is terrible.
Oh, really? Have you looked back at it since and sort of seen how far you've come?
I look back at it and I'm thinking, wow, I probably could have done a better job. Especially with the character. I think, you know, the problem with those first books that I did, and it's the reason why I've never told anyone this before. I don't know why I'm saying it now, but
I'm listening. secrets.
Yeah. Is that the character Darby, as funny as I thought he was, he was polarizing. So readers either hated him or they really liked him, you know? And I think most people just found him annoying, you know? And so that's why I stopped writing. That's the real reason why I stopped writing him for a while, because I thought, all right, I'm going to take a break from Darby. And that's where I came up with the Aby Kane series, the FBI series, you know, which is based off someone I know. My
really?
aunt is a retired FBI agent, and she's about this tall. She's short, just like Abby. She's mixed, just like Abby. You know, half Asian, half white.
Yeah.
So it's kind of based off of her. You know,
wow.
Just yeah.
I bet she, how does that feel? What was her response when you showed her or gave her the books?
She was like, "Don't tell anyone it's me."
I wouldn't do that. Hold on.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't think I actually told her it was based off of her. But what I would do is I would pick her brain. You know, I'd have a situation and I would email her and I would say, hey, this is going to happen in the book. And I think I want the character to do this, but like from a procedure aspect, how would the FBI approach this?
Yeah.
And she would tell me, and I would tell her my idea. And she says, no, oh, we wouldn't do it that way. And I said, well, how would you do it? And then she would tell me, and it would be very boring. And I would go, all right, I'm gonna do it my way. But I would take aspects of what she said, you know, and then I would change it so that it was interesting and, you know, dramatize it. Because if I actually wrote what she said, no one would read it. It would be boring, you know.
It's a surfing a balance, that, isn't it, between making it true enough that most people won't notice and making it exciting, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, they have those type of book, you know, the police procedurals where they really are, they follow it to a T, you know. I don't write those kind of books.
No.
You know, because I don't like to read them. So I take a little bit of it, you know. It's almost like, you know, if you can watch Criminal Minds, you know, these, or CSI, you know, these crime TV shows, you know, they follow a procedure, but they kind of break it down. They dumb it down, you know?
Yeah.
Because they got to solve an entire investigation in an hour, you know? So that's about as much effort as I kind of put into the procedure aspect of it. Like, I don't go any farther than that because those aren't the type of books I write. And there are authors who are really good at writing those type of books. I'm not. You know,
was that part of your consideration? Was that part of your consideration? Was that part of your consideration for sort of leaving the FBI books? Well, starting another series where she's more of a sort of an assassin, like a mercenary type person, you know, so that there is none of this procedure. It's all you can make her do what you like, you know. Do you find that is that easier to write, or is that?
It's different. I wouldn't say it's easier, because with Abby, the FBI agent, I don't necessarily follow the procedure to a T, so I have a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not about her job; it's about her, and how she approaches her job.
Yeah.
So, I really don't get into the nitty gritty of what the FBI does, you know. And so, but it's different. So there are some rules that I have to stick to. But with the assassin, she can do whatever I want her to do. You know, it doesn't matter. But it just needs to ring true for her character. That's about it. You know.
Were you? Cause I'm reading one of yours at the moment, which is one of your newer ones called The Book of Truth. Which is another series, isn't it? A spin-off series of that Assassin series. And there's quite a lot of fight scenes in it. And I have always found fight scenes a little bit difficult because I'm not really a particularly, you know, I don't know anything about fighting, to be honest with you. I'd be rubbish in a fight. Like, how do you did you watch a lot of films? Are you a Taekwondo black belt underneath it all? Are you do you just do a lot of research into fighting? Are you are you a dangerous man? I don't know.
No, I kind of, I think this is where my ad background comes into play. In advertising, you really got to simplify things. You got to take really complicated things that the company wants to say and break it down into like a few words so that the average person can digest it. So I don't get technical about my fight scenes. I approach it the same way where, I don't spend a whole lot of time talking about what they're doing or detailing what they're doing. My fight scenes don't go on and on. I've read books where the fight scenes can go on for like pages and pages, and I get bored. I just skip over it. So finding that line, for me, for my characters was really easy because I would only go as far as to the point where I would get bored writing it, and I keep it simple, and I believe it. I think for me, it works well that way where, theoretically you can punch a guy once and they don't get back up,
If
So,
you're some
a lot
great,
of
if you're
times-
some assassin like one of the people in your novels, certainly they have all sorts of crazy strengths.
So I try to get creative in how they dispatch them, or how the fight scene takes place, and especially if they have a weapon, the fight scene, it's over really quick, as opposed to if they're doing hand-to-hand combat, but I don't know. I don't really, I've seen those books. I think I bought one book on like how to write fight scenes, and I read like the first couple pages and I stopped because it was just boring reading that book about how to write fight scenes.
I think you're right when you said balance, isn't there? Because I've read books where there's lots of fighting and whatever, but the fighting has to mean something. That's what makes it important, isn't it? Is like the build up. If it were just a random fight for no reason, it wouldn't mean anything. But it's like the reason behind that fight, I think, is that conflict is the most important thing.
I agree.
How do you deal with writing so many different series at once? Because you've got three that you write at the moment, like constantly, and then this fourth one that you'd written years ago that you haven't written for a while. Is that right?
It's easy because all of these characters were born out of another series.
Right. So they all spin off from each other, and
they're all spin-offs. And so Aby Kane, the FBI agent, she's based off a detective in the very first series I wrote, the Darby Stansfield series. There's a detective out of Hong Kong, Leslie Choi, and I was going to spin her off, but I decided not to. And I created someone who's very much like her, which is Aby Kane. And then as I started writing the Aby Kane books, I brought in an assassin in one of the books, and readers responded well. So I spun her off into her own series. Her name's Sei. I think a lot of people call her C though.
I was thinking Sei, but Sei.
Sei, whatever works.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter to me. And then her daughter, when I wrapped that series, people are like, no, we need more. So I spun the daughter off, and so that's what I do now is when I'm writing it, if I find an interesting character, I just keep them in the back of my head. And it's like, all right, I could. And now when I write, I always keep that in mind. It's like Abby's son, when I first wrote the first book, I think he was like 6 or 7. And now he's 17 or 18. But over the course of all these books, I've been slowly grooming him for his own series. So I'm thinking about every character that I write, like is there potential for a spin-off series? And if I think there is, I'll start grooming them. So it makes sense for them to break off.
So
And
this
then
is to do with
it creates this world that I'm not really leaving. So that's why it's easy for me to go back and forth.
It's such a good idea to sort of keep it within the same sort of universe. I think for readers and for yourself, because there can be crossover later if you want there to be, and all these sorts of things. So you decide that, or you get feedback from the readers that helps you think that, or is it a bit of both? Or
in the beginning, it was the readers saying that, and that's when I started realizing, hey, I should do this. And now it's just so automatic about everything I do. I'm thinking about, okay, is this a character? Is this a character that I can go do something with? If I think it is, I will craft them or change the story so that it sets them up for something else, And so now it's something that's it's automatic in my head whenever I'm writing.
I'm really interested. You said
and
that.
then I'll ask them, I have a team of beta readers. And I'll ask them, I say, hey, what do you think about this character? I'm thinking about giving them their own book or whatever. Would you be interested in that? And so I get feedback, and then I always. So I have about 3 or 4 characters. I very easily could just give them their own series. You know what I mean? The problem is finding the time to write all that. So I have to pick and choose.
That's the age-old problem, isn't it? 24 hours in a day. A complete side note, it's called Books and Beer. What are you drinking?
Okay, I'm drinking Sing. Whoops.
Oh, nice. I like Sing. That's a lovely beer. Is that a Thai beer?
Ha,
is it a Thai beer?
It's not pronounced Sing Ha. It's pronounced Sing. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's Thai beer. It's lager.
Yeah. No, I've enjoyed a few Thai beers over the years. Old Empire IPA for me. I went to the proper shop and got some nice beers. I like that one. I finished it now though. I'm on to the next one. Which is an Atlantic Pale Ale. There we are. All right, let's have a look in these comments quickly, Ty. Let's have a look in these comments. Ian Bond, who's a friend of mine from uni, says, hello to you both. Thank you for joining us. Ian, how was your daughter's birthday? I know it was her birthday last week or the week before. I remember you talking about it. Alison says she loves a good fight scene. Do you mean in reality, Alison, or in the books that you read? Dangerous woman. And Alison says she's a Thai... yeah. She's a Thai virgin. She's going to have to start reading one of your books. Ty, what book would you recommend as the first one if someone's never read any of your books already? What's a great inroad to your...
if they like crime thrillers, I would say my Aby Kane series, but I wouldn't necessarily start with the very first book in the series. I always funnel people into Suitcase Girl.
I've read this one, yeah.
Which is book number 7, and I think it's I really like the idea behind it.
It's a great,
and I think a lot
story.
of people find it interesting, and they it hooks them. The idea of the story hooks them, and then they get to know Aby. And I find that when people read that book first, they're more inclined to go on and read my other books because. Yeah. I don't know. It just seems like a really good lead-in, and it's weird that maybe because by then I kind of Abby's found her groove.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's easily my best-selling book.
So the thing I loved about Suitcase Girl is there is. It's got like there's this whole sort of people track. I won't try and give it away, but it's got like this sort of people trafficking beat in it, which involves container ships and the container freight transport industry and this sort of thing. And it could happen. It's one of those stories that could be possible. Do you know what I mean? Like it's one of those things that you think actually, this with all the things that are moved on these giant freighters like that, this is, and I think that's what a great thriller is, isn't it? It's believable. It is something that that could happen. Fiona says hello. Hi Fiona, how are you doing? I hope you're well. Steve Moore says he read and really loved Suitcase Girl. Brilliant. Yeah, I agree. And Ian says his daughter's birthday was surprisingly fun. Ariel on Zoom being the highlight. Totally different pace of story there. Yes. You're absolutely right. Ariel on Zoom.
How do you
So,
bring up the comments?
oh, if I click on them on my screen, they appear on
Oh,
the main screen. I don't know if you can see them. I'm not sure what it looks like from your end. Whether
I can
you
see
have
them
them
when
on
you
the
pop them up.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
because I'm on my phone. I'm not on my laptop.
It's a bit more difficult. I don't know what the phone interface looks like, but yeah, I imagine it's a bit smaller
Yeah.
than it is on here. But you're looking great and sounding great. That's the important thing. How long does it take you then, from sort of inception to publication with one of your books?
If I don't screw around,
Yeah. Is that
I
normal?
can write a book in a month.
Wow. How many words do you normally write?
Well, if I try to write 3,000 words a day.
Mm-hmm.
So 3,000 words a day, you should easily be able to write a book in a month, you know? But that's not factoring days where you just get stuck and you don't know what's going to happen, or you get lazy, or other aspects of the job come into play, and you just have to devote time to that. But if all is going well, I can easily finish a book in a month. The other part of the process, the production, with the editor, the proofreaders, my beta readers, I can't really shorten that timeline because it is what it is.
Yeah, because they actually have to do something.
Yeah, exactly. If the editor tells me she needs 2 weeks, she needs 2 weeks. What can I do? But I can write, as all hours of the day, so I can either expand my timeline or shorten it. So, now I'm trying to shorten. I'm writing more every day. Before I wasn't, because I was traveling a lot. We talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
But now there's the pandemic.
Now you're stuck
so
here.
I'm not traveling as much. I travel to the 7-Eleven. That's about it.
I know. I can imagine. It's a crazy place to be. But there must be a point at which you can't. Now I get to the point. I've realised in my writing that I can do about 1,000 words an hour, right? But then after about 4 hours, it tapers off to much less than that. So I've realised that the sweet spot is about that 4. What?
I break up my writing. So I'll write in the morning, and sometimes I'll write 1,000 words, and some days I'll write 2,000. It depends how distracted I am. And then I'll take a break because I just need a break. And it's usually around lunchtime. So I'll take a break, and then I'll come back in the afternoon, and I'll try and lay down another 1,000 words. And then I'll take a break again. And usually at that point, I go to the gym or I do some exercise, something to break it up. And then I'll come back again at night, And I find that this works really well for me by taking these breaks rather than trying to get the 3,000 words all in one session.
Yeah.
I break it up, and because I have so much control over my day, I can do that. I can write in the morning, the afternoon, at night. Now, if someone calls me and goes, "Hey, what are you doing? Let's go out," then it's clearly I'm not going to make 3,000.
This is the thing at the moment, isn't it? I'm sort of thinking I want to get all the writing I can done at the moment whilst the world's on hold a little bit, because as soon as things open, we're all just going to be out seeing each other, meeting up, going traveling, all these sorts of things. There's going to be no writing done for months.
Exactly. So I might as well get the writing in now. But it's like what you said. You can only do so much, and then your brain gets tired. For me, it's my eyes. My eyes get tired of looking at the screen. So I need a break. And I find that when I take these breaks, it recharges me. Before, I never did that. And I found it hard to write 3,000 words a day. Now I don't find it very hard at all if I break it up.
Yeah.
But sometimes life gets in the way, and you don't get to 3,000 words done, and I'm okay with that. I don't beat myself up about it.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
That's it, exactly. And I think readers are understanding as well, that they... I've spoken often on this channel about my books being later than expected, not knowing when the next one's going to come out, and all these sorts of things. And no one said just hash it together and put it out tomorrow. Everyone's been like, all right, put it out when you're ready to do that, and we'll look forward to it. I think people understand that actually it's a real tough job, isn't it, putting a book together? And people like yourself with 30 or so under your belt, wow. Still, though, it must be a challenge, each and every one, in its own way.
You know what the challenge is for me? Is that I just get tired, or I get lazy, or I just don't feel like writing. Yeah. And I'll sit there for like 2 hours, and I'll write like 300 words. And that's when I know, all right, I need a break. Yeah. And I'll just stop. Because what's the point of sitting there, trying to write like 2 or 3 words, and then I go on Facebook, another 2 or 3 words, and I'm Googling something. Yeah. It's just a waste of time. I'll just cut my losses, and I'll focus on something else, Or I'll go eat some tacos.
I know exactly what you mean. I was thinking the same about this next book of mine, and I've talked about this as well, Riga, which is going to be the next one. And the story's fantastic. Brilliant story. I've planned it all out. And we had a conversation just before we came on air, Ty and I, and he said, what you do is put up the pre-order for it, don't you? Like as soon as you're done, as soon as the next one's out, pre-order's up. And I thought... Yeah. That would get me writing. That may be something to look at doing in the next couple of weeks, to think, right.
You got to do whatever you need to do to get yourself writing. Sometimes, people find their motivation in a lot of different ways,
How many stories do you have sort of buzzing around your head at once then? Because if you've got different series and you're thinking sort of back as to this one's coming next and this one's coming next and that one, you must have several.
Yeah. Actually, I don't really think about the story until I actually need to write it, or I'm not. Well, now I'm setting up a pre-order. Then I'll think a little bit about it, but I've never really struggled in that aspect. It just kind of, I don't plot.
Oh, really?
I mean, no, wait, wrong thing. I don't sit down and plot out my story and, outline it and everything. Outlining, that's the word I wanted. I will see, it's the beer. Beer's getting to me. I've tried to outline.
It is midnight where you are.
I feel like it restricts me creatively. I much rather write the story and not know what's going to happen and be pleasantly surprised. Because then I know my readers are going to have the exact same feeling. Because I had it, I didn't know the twist was coming. I didn't know the character was going to do this,
Yeah.
So I've tried outlining, I've tried all that stuff. It just doesn't work for me. And so I just said, screw it. I just make the stuff up as I go, and if I get stuck, then I sit down for a little bit and I might plot out, okay, well, maybe they do this and this and this. And I'll write down like 2 or 3 sentence description for the next 3 or 5 chapters so that at least I know where I'm going. Mm-hmm. But that's about it, It's I think what the reason why I work this way is because of my ad background. In advertising, we're generating ideas all the time because they're always getting killed by the client or by internally, so you're constantly under this pressure to generate ideas, and you get really good at doing it really fast. So I think that's the reason why I work this way, whereas I just kind of do it on the fly. Whereas a lot of authors,
and I suppose you're not sort of precious. I suppose you're not sort of precious about those ideas either, because if you've been in a situation where you write it down and you go, oh no, that's rubbish, that can't happen, and you can just knock it to a side I think that's a thing with being an experienced writer. I've written scenes before where I thought it was a great idea, and I'm not going to stop. And I'm not. And then you read it back a month later, and you're like, "What was I even thinking about that? Like,
Yeah.
that
That's the
clearly
overnight
doesn't
test.
work. You know, that
Yeah.
clearly isn't a good
I
thing."
mean, I do that all the time. You know, you wake up the next morning, you go, "Oh, this is rubbish," you know.
Yeah.
But
That's
I'm
it.
not precious about anything. You know, my skin's pretty thick. You know, if there's a better way to do it, I'm all ears. You know, I listen to my editor. I get feedback from my readers. There was a time when I think it was 2 books ago. I had a beta reader. She came back and she said, "I think you should move this scene from this chapter to another chapter." And I went, "What? You want me to move an entire scene 3 chapters down the line?" And so she goes, "I think it'd work better. It just will work better." And so when I went back and I read it, and then I moved the scene and I reread it, she was absolutely right. It did work better. You know? I had no problem moving that scene. You know what I mean? You know, if someone comes back and they rewrite the entire paragraph or sentence and it's better than the way I wrote it, I use it.
That's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with you completely.
Totally. Like, you know, that's the whole point. You're asking for their feedback, their opinion, you know, and, you know, I listen, you know, I'm looking for them to help me make the book better.
And
I've gotten it to the point where they're reading it.
Yeah.
Clearly,
yes.
I can't get it any further.
Yeah. That's it, isn't it? That's
You know?
it. Have you ever gone back and edited or changed books that you've released previously, and you've changed them after their release, or once they're out, they're sort of gone, and you leave them to do it?
Yeah, I have. I've actually done that recently, where I've gone back and I've tightened up stories, because now I like to think I'm a better writer. So when I go back and I read these, I read these books, I don't change the story, but I'll change the way I wrote things, you know?
Yeah.
Or I'll see it like a plot hole, you know? I'll be like, man, this could work a lot better, you know? And so I'll fix it, you know? And I just recently started doing that. I didn't do it before, but I started doing it now. I'm going back to my older books and I'm reading them, and I'm slowly, I guess editing them, you know? I don't know if people will notice the difference or not. You know, when you got 60, 70, 80,000 words in a book and you're changing one sentence, I don't think people notice that shit at all.
No, it's a strange one to think, isn't it? But then some people do. There's always some people that do. Like, I did my Hong Kong audiobook this week. I've just finished it and uploaded it, sent it off. And I noticed 5 mistakes from reading it. Not so much like things where just little things. It was the wrong word, or there was missing a word. 5 or 6 in a 60,000 word book. And I thought, actually, that's okay. That's not too many. But still, I still went back and put them in and changed it and re-uploaded the thing, just so that it's slightly, you know, sure. anyone who will notice those or might notice those, they're on this new version, you know.
That's the great thing about working the way we work. You can go back and fix things, you know. You know, you can change things. I mean, I'll admit it. There've been some times when I haven't done my due diligence and gone back and made sure that what that character was doing then syncs up to what they're doing now.
I mean, that's the bigger thing, isn't it? You know, like he was doing this before, and now he's doing this, and it's like, you know.
But now I keep track of that stuff. I have like this little document where I write down, you know, what age that character was, you know, what they were doing, you know. Yeah, because you know, it's just so much easier to look at that than to go back, you know, and find it in the book, you know, or so now I'm a little bit better at keeping track of all this stuff. So if I have a question like about a certain character, like, you know, are they the right age, or did I talk about this before in another book? And now that I'm doing crossover between my series, it's even more important. You know, because it's so easy for me to get mixed up.
That could
I mean,
be
there
a
was a
real
time when I was
minefield,
writing
couldn't
a
it?
book. I was actually writing a book, and I thought I was writing another book. I literally wrote half a chapter for a story for the wrong book. And then, yeah, it was stupid. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing?
Oh man, what?
Because in my head, I was thinking about the wrong book. I was like, oh, she did this like this. But no, she did it in the crossover book, you know? And it just, and then I started writing it as if, you know, it happened in the last book, and it never did.
Mm.
And I had to go back and change it all.
It's got to be hard work doing that. Like I've got 5 books, four novels and a novella, and I struggle with things like that. Like the protagonist's got a nephew, a young nephew, and he's 2 or 3 or something like that. And anyway, I really struggle with the idea that how is that person growing? Because he's not a main character, so you don't see him grow, but people refer to his age because he's young. And it's the idea that, yeah, but he was 2 here, but now he's 3. But there's not that much time has passed, you know. Like
You got to keep
things
a
like
character
that.
Bible.
Yeah,
You have to keep track of that.
People
You know,
will
so it
pick up
makes
as well.
sense.
I'm sure. Yeah. People.
You know,
will
my
pick up.
editor used to call me out on that all the time. She was like, you know, in the last book, you said she was 6 years old. Why is she 8 now? Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
And you were just
And
like,
so
she's a
that's the
child.
reason
I was
why I
just
started
picking an
keeping
age
track
for
of
a
it.
child.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
it. That's
you know
it.
what I do now is I don't give them ages.
No, this is what I've started doing, and just saying he was not saying specific
He was a
ages,
young
just saying
man.
a couple of years ago or 2. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Let's have a quick look at these comments. Ian has said, very interesting thoughts on working patterns. In my job, it's tricky as the pace is so full on, but concentration can always be a challenge. That's the thing, isn't it? If you can't pick your time scale, you can't pick your sort of working routine, you don't really have a choice, do you? You just have to do it as you have to, you know. But for Ty and myself, I suppose we've got the pleasure of being able to work or not work whenever you want to. Although invariably, Ty, I don't know about you, but I end up working more now in terms of hours, in terms of just even something like this. It's not work, but it's work related. You know, it's work related to that extra stuff. Like you're up till midnight on the job, effectively. You know. And Alison says, "You know me. I do pick up on the little things." Yes, that's it. That's it. Alison, what are you drinking tonight? She's normally on the beer. Alison's a big real. She's a big real ale fan. Ty, as am I. So yeah, Ty, where did you live before you moved to Bangkok? Then in the States somewhere, I assume.
I was living in San Francisco.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Is that?
I was there for 5 years. I moved around a lot. I've lived in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta. But the last place I lived before I came to Thailand was San Francisco. And I wasn't even going to stay in Thailand. I thought I would come here for like 6 months, write a book, and then go to some other major city, stay there for 6 months, write a book. But it never worked out that way, you know?
Yeah.
Thailand was my first visit to Asia. And I was pleasantly surprised by how interesting I found it, and that I just kept extending it. Yeah, and I started exploring, and here I am,
I love
8
Thailand.
years later. Yeah.
There's a place in Thailand which has inspired one of my books, but not one of my future books in my mind. And it's a place. What was the guy's name? You'll know this. He was an American businessman who built a house in Thailand. And he got really into like the Eastern culture, and some people prophesized his disappearance, and then he disappeared on the day at which they prophesized his disappearance. And the house still exists today. It's quite near the it's in Bangkok. What's the guy called? Do you know who I'm talking about? Do you think I'm?
No.
I'm gonna have to Google this and check whilst I'm on here. Because it's one of those things. If anyone knows in the comments, do this. Right, hold on, excuse me. If not, I'll put it in the. No, that's not it. Oh. Bangkok Attractions. It's a famous place, certainly. But it's not typical. Well, it is typically Thai, but it was built by an American guy, as far as I know.
I know they had a Hemingway house here.
No, I'll give it another 30 seconds. If not, I'm. Jim Thompson. Jim Thompson.
Oh yeah. Jim Thompson.
That's the one. Jim Thompson.
Yeah.
I knew it was Jim something or some.
It's still standing.
Yeah, I went when I was there a few years back. It's fascinating. It's the story though, right? The house itself is interesting, but not as interesting as the idea that this guy, very wealthy guy, sort of prophesized his disappearance and then disappeared. And where he went or what happened, I mean, it was a long
Isn't
time ago.
Isn't there a clothing line after that? Jim Thompson shirts?
I'm not sure. Well, maybe that was how he made his money. I don't know. Yeah.
I've heard of the place. I've never been. I should probably go.
Yes, you should. Yeah, but that's the thing about being a tourist in a place, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
you go to all these places, but if you live there, you know, how often do I go to the local art galleries near where I live, or these sorts of things?
Yeah.
You know, in a normal day, you know, very very infrequently. You know, how often do you go to there's the lying down Buddha, that big golden lying down Buddha there, and the Central Palace and all that sort of, yeah, what? Or the floating market, or you know, Koh San Road.
I've never been. You know why? Because every time I've traveled outside of Thailand. So I've done very little traveling within the country.
Mm.
You know, because you know, part of the reason why is I'm not here like for a job. You know, I don't work here, so I don't have, you know, visa was an issue. So every 3 months I'd have to leave the country. So that's why I would travel outside of the country. And then when I come back in, you know, I just kind of hang out. I wouldn't travel within the country.
Yeah. Then you
and
get
that's
to
probably
work
the
when
reason
you
why
came back.
I haven't explored Thailand as much as I should have. But I have been doing that recently because, you know, the pandemic. So
that's it.
I've seen more.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a cool place, and I look forward to hopefully coming over and
when were you in Thailand?
At some stage. I was there in 2015 and 2013. So
13 and 15?
Yeah.
Oh, I was here both times.
Oh, were you? You would have been there in
Yeah.
August. I came for a few weeks in both times in August, but. It's but Bangkok is such a great place because of the links, as you've said, to other places. You know, you can be in Singapore in what, hour and a half, 2 hours from where you are. You know, or you know, Malaysia in the same, or Vietnam, or wherever. Yeah. So
I've been to Vietnam probably 30 times already. Yeah, I lived there for about 6 months too.
Wow, you did it! Wow, what place? What?
In Ho Chi Minh. I mean, there was a time in my life where I was literally traveling and just living in hotels. And when I got bored, I would just open up Google Maps and just look where I wanted to go next. And I would go because, you know,
why not?
The way we can work anywhere, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I just need an internet connection. And so I would just move around. I would stay in this city for 3 months, or stay here for 2 weeks, or, you know, sometimes I would only be there for 2 weeks, and I'd get bored and I'd move on, you know? And I was just doing that. And I was just living for about 2 years, just living in hotels. And it was a lot of fun. I didn't get a lot of writing done.
No. So you've talked about your novel set in Morocco. What city is that in Marrakesh? Yeah,
Marrakesh.
Yeah. And what's the one after that? Have you got any other destinations planned that your novel will take place in?
Now that's the only one that I've kind of nailed down. But I I can, I'll try and find a place that I've visited and see if it makes sense. But I find that a lot of times you can substitute one place for another place. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Like if you visited one place in China, you kind of know that other cities are going to be a little bit the same.
Yeah.
Like I've never been to Shanghai, but I've been to Beijing and Hong Kong, and
you just
you kind of get the feel for like how the city runs, and you kind of use that, and then you do a little research, Google Maps.
Google Maps is such a great tool for writers, isn't it?
Yeah.
It
I
really
don't necessarily feel like I have to fly there and do like research that way. I know some people do. I tried it, and it's just like a huge waste of money because I didn't pay attention to what I should have been doing.
Yeah.
And I just started being tourist, and then I'd come back and go, did I learn anything from my book? And I was like, no. But I had a lot of fun.
I know. I've done the same. My third book, Berlin, I tried to write whilst I was in Berlin, and it just went really badly because half the days I was hungover or doing something else, And I remember just sitting in a coffee shop trying to get like a couple of 100 words out, like in the morning, and it just was rubbish. And I just in the end just took a load of what I do now is just take a load of photos. I do quite a lot of like voice notes if there's something interesting, or type something in saying, oh, there's a great cobbled street that would be really cool for a car chase, on whatever,
The photos is key. You take a photo and you go, I'll deal with this later.
Yeah, that's it. And then you can scroll back through, can't you, years behind and go, oh yeah, there was this writing on the wall there that meant this or meant that or whatever.
I'll put this in the book.
Yeah. That's it. Oh, Ty, it's been fantastic. Thank you. It's been fantastic to talk to you about your writing and all that. It's really, really cool. And yeah, all the way from Bangkok as well. It seems like such a long way away at the moment when we're not sort of able to travel or not traveling very often. But that'll come back, and I look forward to getting over there at some point.
How far ahead am I? I'm 7 hours ahead of you.
You're 7 hours, so we're just
7
about
hours.
What, 5:30, 5:45 now, 5 to 6 now. Yeah. So no, you're doing a good job. Right, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Ty, stop where you are, and we'll have a quick talk when we've gone off live. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been absolutely fantastic to have this conversations and share this with you. Ty, what book? So you say Suitcase Girl is the one to recommend of yours, if for new readers.
Yeah, Suitcase Girl.
So if you just put Ty Hutchinson, it's Ty. It's on the screen there in front of you, Hutchinson, into any. But you're on all stores, aren't you? So you can get you anywhere. Into your favourite bookstore, ebook store, and have a look at Suitcase Girl because it's a great story. I think it's a great story. Steve Moore's been in the comments saying he thinks it's a great story. Thank you all so much for your comments today and listening. I will be back next week. I'm not sure what's going to happen next week, actually, on this. I'm going to be here. I've got a couple of things.
I'm coming back.
You can come, mate. You can come back anytime you like. If you want to be up at midnight next Wednesday, if you find yourself up at midnight next Wednesday, drop me a message and you come back. I will be back here next Wednesday. I've got a few things one of which is audiobooks, a few things I'd like to talk about, one of which may be the audiobooks again. I'm not sure whether they'll be ready for next week, but we'll see. We'll see how we go. Thanks so much, and I'll see you again very, very soon.